My name is H.A. Goodman, and I'm an author, columnist, and journalist. And to read my writing and to see my latest CNN appearances and my MSNBC and RT appearances, you can go to hagoodman.com. Thank you so much for the kind words on regarding my appearance on RT's Crosstalk. The link is below. Please continue to share it. It's going viral, and I really appreciate your support and kind words. WikiLeaks 32 is out. WikiLeaks 32 is out. We learn that Chelsea Clinton used money from the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, for her wedding. Obvious conflict of interest. You can't really do that if you're running a charitable organization. We'll get to conflicts of interest, the 500 conflicts of interest and the $50 million that Bill Clinton was able to earn from his charitable organization, which is against the law. We will also get to a whole bunch of things, but there's another very interesting email in WikiLeaks 32 that talks about Neera Tanden and Podesta, where they're asking each other, well, who on earth allowed Hillary Clinton or told Clinton that she could use a private email? And Podesta says, don't you think it's Cheryl Mills? So that's a very interesting email. I'll get to that in a couple minutes. I'm going to start off this segment, WikiLeaks 32, with an op-ed in the New York Times. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to transition from reading this op-ed to the actual revelations that we've learned that pertain to the UPS FedEx. It's all swirling around in my mind. I was thinking just now about the FBI believing that Bill Clinton's aide shipped a laptop in the mail. UPS, FedEx, we don't know, with 4 years of her emails, classified emails in addition. But anyway, I'm going to transition from reading portions of this op-ed in the New York Times to the actual revelations we learned that pertain to the IRS in Dallas investigating the Clinton Foundation, the FBI at this moment with a New York DOJ attorney investigating the Clinton Foundation, the fact that there are two FBI criminal investigations, one pertaining directly to the new one, pertaining directly to Anthony Weiner's 650,000 emails. We find now on Uma Abedin and Weiner's laptop, there were emails from Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State that emanated from her private server. But I will read you, WikiLeaks isn't whistleblowing. This is the New York Times. Okay? It might as well have been written by the editorial board. So it might as well have been an editorial. This is with all due respect to the writer. So I have no beef at all with the writer, but I'm just going to read you this. And this is basically this New York Times editorial. So let's just call it that, because the Times published this for a reason, because it coincides exactly with their viewpoints. The New York Times and others are saying, well, it's an invasion of John Podesta's privacy. WikiLeaks doesn't curate. This is really picking on the little guy. Podesta and Hillary Clinton are the two most powerful people in American politics. That campaign, Hillary Clinton could decide whether or not to send more Americans back to counterinsurgency wars where half to two-thirds of all the Americans killed and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan were the victims of IED blasts. Where by 2053, just in the interest alone, we're going to pay $8 trillion between Iraq and Afghanistan and the war on terror. So just by 2053, interest alone will pay $8 trillion. But I'm going to read you. So these WikiLeaks emails shed light into not only ongoing FBI criminal investigations, but they shed light into the internal workings and the true thoughts of people who could decide the fate of our nation. I think they're important. I'll read you essentially the New York Times editorial, with all due respect to the writer. I once asked Daniel Ellsberg, who in 1971 leaked the secret history of the Vietnam War, known as the Pentagon Papers, if he had any regrets. He told me, as he told many others, that he regretted only that he had not leaked them earlier, when they might have had more impact and perhaps shortened the war. That paragraph highlights exactly why WikiLeaks is important. If WikiLeaks revelations can save us from a constitutional crisis where Hillary Clinton has an ongoing criminal investigation and the population of the United States is influenced by their own reaction to Hillary Clinton having a private and public face, or Clinton admitting that certain nations fund our enemies in the Middle East, but then still taking that money, that's a good thing. We should, if we are just horrified by that kind of revelation, then it's a good thing for people to say, you know what, I'm going to think twice about voting for Clinton because there's too many issues going on, in addition to the fact that there's an FBI criminal investigation where we know from a whole bunch of WikiLeaks emails that there was a cover-up from the beginning. But I'll continue. I'll get to the exact emails that undermine this editorial. Whistleblowing, as Mr. Ellsberg did, is a time-honored means for exposing the secret machinations of the powerful. That we know the secret machinations now of very powerful people because of WikiLeaks. But the release of huge amounts of hacked data with no apparent oversight or curation does the opposite. Such leaks threaten our ability to dissent by destroying privacy and unleashing a glut of questionable information that functions somewhat unexpectedly as its own form of censorship rather than as a way to illuminate the maneuverings of the powerful. What the does that even mean? No, it does not. There's no. You cannot say that WikiLeaks dumps everything without curating, and then it leads to censorship, because there's so much information we just don't know what's going on. And no. We know that there's 500 conflicts of interest from Doug Band. We know that Hillary Clinton has stated in an email that Qatar and Saudi Arabia fund IS. We know that Qatar gave $1 million to Bill Clinton's birthday. We know that Saudi Arabia gave 10 to 25 million to the Clinton Foundation. We know that Cheryl Mills on March 2nd, March 7th, says President Obama has her emails. They do not say state.gov. They do not say state.gov. Therefore, we know President Obama knew, or at least we know that Cheryl Mills at that point, March 7th, 2015, before President Obama said, I didn't know about the emails to the American public, at least we know that Cheryl Mills knew that he knew. That also undermines the attorney-client privilege that both Mills and Clinton claimed they needed and the FBI granted. We can go on forever. The latest example of these dumps comes from WikiLeaks, which is releasing the emails of Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, in dribs and drabs, going back to 2008, when Mr. Podesta was co-chairman of Barack Obama's transition team. A transition team, we learned, that had very close ties to Wall Street and to the same people who collapsed the economy. Just a side note, it might be a point of interest to people who don't want another financial collapse. Anyway, wait, you might think. John Podesta is about as far from dissent politics as you can get. These leaks have produced genuine news. We finally get to see some text of Mrs. Clinton's paid speeches to Goldman Sachs, for example. What's wrong with that? Doesn't that serve public interest? The hacked emails did provide the public with some notable information, but any benefit of such mass data release does not undo their harm. Any benefit of such mass data release does not undo their harm. And that harm is relevant whether or not the data was stolen by a foreign government seeking to influence. The victims here are not just Mr. Podesta and the people in his contacts list who are embarrassed or compromised. The victims of leaks of private communication is the ability of dissent to function in a democracy. This is doublespeak. We know it's doublespeak because there's a Salon article very clearly written that states from the WikiLeaks emails, a revelation that we learned that directly correlates to U.S. foreign policy, the direction of this nation, whether or not Americans are going to risk their lives again for essentially the goal of implementing democracy in the Middle East, which started with Bush and now is continuing with it continued with President Obama and could intensify under Hillary Clinton. This is the Salon article that undermines the entire theme of the op-ed that I just read. I'm reading. Leaked Hillary Clinton emails show U.S. allies Saudi Arabia and Qatar supported ISIS. A recently leaked 2014 email from Hillary Clinton acknowledges, citing Western intelligence sources, that the U.S.-backed regimes in Saudi Arabia and Qatar have supported ISIS. Quote, we need to use our diplomatic and more traditional intelligence assets to bring pressure on these governments, which are providing clandestine financial and logistic support to IS and other radical Sunni groups in the region. This was an email where Hillary Clinton admits, by the way, the email was a classified email, because in the email actually says sources include U.S. intelligence, Western intelligence sources. So it's a classified email. That's another story. We know that Hillary Clinton emailed top secret information to 3 of her aides. That's according to Vice News, who did not have top secret clearance. We know that she used an unencrypted private server to store 22 top secret emails with special access program intelligence connected to a BlackBerry the NSA said she could not use. But I'll get back to this. The point, though, is we learned that Hillary Clinton is not only a hypocrite or not only hiding from the American public something that she knows, but her foundation is taking money from the same governments who fund our enemies. This is one of the biggest revelations that Julian Assange talked about. If the New York Times can't understand that, well, that's because they're a public relations firm for Hillary Clinton. The Washington Post is also a public relations firm. So we should not know, because it infringes upon John Podesta's privacy. The same person who is associated with the Podesta Group, who lobbied on behalf of Uranium One. As Uranium One executives were sending money to the Clinton Foundation, and as that company was majority owned by the Russian government, while it was selling 20% of uranium to Vladimir Putin, and the State Department signed off on that miraculously. It was just a coincidence, one of many odd coincidences that always put 85 donors, $156 million to the Clinton Foundation for access. Oh, just a coincidence. Uranium One executives donating to the Clinton Foundation as they're selling money to the Clinton Foundation, just a coincidence. Hillary Clinton taking money from countries that fund our enemies, just a coincidence. Hillary Clinton storing top secret information on a private server, just a mistake. Hillary Clinton saying that Bosnian sniper fire, she escaped Bosnian sniper fire, and just a mistake. Calling black youth super predators. Oh, she shouldn't have used those words. A saying in 2008 that President Obama, well, I'm going to continue in the race because we know that Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Oh, well, that's just, it was a mistake from Clinton. Every single thing that happens with Clinton is either a mistake or she shouldn't have said, or, well, it was a coincidence. 2 FBI criminal investigations. Well, the FBI now is working for Russia. Everything is this bizarre, insane story. It's never that Hillary Clinton is engaged in criminal activities. She's a pathological liar. And her track record as a politician is horrendous. Iraq, Libya, Honduras. She wants a post-Assad plan in Syria with a no-fly zone with Russian jets above. Anyway, that was a long tangent. Memo shows Bill Clinton's wealth was tied to Clinton Foundation. One of the many very important revelations we've learned. We can go into this revelation right here. This is from the top, banned to Justin Cooper, top officials at the Clinton Foundation. Quote, "We do not receive a fee or percentage of the more than $50 million in profit for activity we have personally helped to secure President Clinton to date, or the $66 million in future contracts, should he choose to continue with those engagements." So $50 million in for-profit activity and $66 million in future contracts. The victims here, and I'll go back to the op-ed, the victims here are not just Mr. Podesta. And we can go on to where's the best, one of the best parts of this. Then it talks about false accusations that WikiLeaks outed people in Saudi Arabia. And if Saudi Arabia, if these things are taking place in Saudi Arabia, why on earth didn't Hillary Clinton say something or say, you know what? You treat gay people, you treat all the women's rights. I'm not going to take money from Saudi Arabia until they treat women with the same rights, or women's rights improve, or the LGBT community in Saudi Arabia is not tormented and murdered. Have you ever heard Hillary Clinton say anything? Because she's getting that money. And that's why when there's a part in here that says, well, you know, WikiLeaks, and it's not true, is linked to outing people. If that's a problem in Saudi Arabia, why on earth doesn't Hillary Clinton take a stand? She doesn't take a stand on anything. That's the issue. Then it goes on. Journalism ethics have to transition from the time of information scarcity to the current realities of information glut and privacy invasion. Okay. This is essentially the New York Times editorial board spouting off its nonsense as usual. And the New York Times, the Washington Post, a whole bunch of others, the Daily Beast, Slate, TPM, are public relations firms. Journalism and ethics have nothing to do with them. When you have an O5 audio of a hot mic, talk about privacy being infringed upon. It's a hot mic. Trump didn't even know he was being recorded. Was it an insane comment? Of course. Was it disgusting? Crazy? Yeah. But that was used by the Washington Post, every Democrat on the planet loyal to Hillary, and Hillary Clinton to her advantage. It was an invasion of privacy. Nobody cares. And it was from 2005 that has no correlation to sending Americans back to the Middle East. Everything we've learned from WikiLeaks has direct correlation to the FBI probes, the criminal investigations into the Clinton Foundation, and the fact that the fate of our nation rests upon this election. So excuse us, New York Times and Washington Post, if we find out that Bill Clinton gets $50 million in profit from a charitable organization that he used to raise $10 billion from Haiti that is now lost. Or if Hillary Clinton admits that there are countries that fund the enemies we're fighting and still takes money from those countries, yeah, that's important. Sorry if it infringes upon Podesta's spirit cooking dinners and the fact that he likes UFOs and we know all these things. If it's an average citizen, yeah, no, don't infringe upon that person's privacy. But if it's an individual or individuals who could influence the direction or the fate of this nation and decide in many ways the future of hundreds of millions of people in the United States and billions of people around the world, yeah, I think it's important. That information is important. Give me your thoughts below. WikiLeaks 32 is out.